Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Got Puppy right back here. That's Miss Aurora. Anyway, today I'm just going to do, I say it's quick, but it's not really quick. This is a video that I'm going to show you kind of how I did a shoot with Vanessa a few weeks ago on my channel. I'll get it linked somewhere in here. Um, and in the photo, I've got a couple shots where she's up on a tree. And she's got some hot spots on her forehead and then on her cheek. The sun was kind of not really coming in and out of clouds, but it was really dark, so I was just compensating again with my camera. And so in this video, I wanted to show how I use Photoshop to kind of get rid of some hot spots. You can use the generative fill, or you can maybe use content aware. And I know that if people have updated to the newer version of Photoshop, you might get the notification that you only get so many generative fills per month or whatever that is. So use these sparingly, I guess. You can do some of it, and you'll see it in the video, using content aware and just some of the way that I do it. And I'll actually try to explain it. Unfortunately, I recorded this a while back, but I didn't have a way to record really my audio well at the time, and it just recorded on the computer. So I'm going to kind of talk over it, voice over it, and try to explain a little bit again what I'm doing. All right, so here we go. This is one of the images here. I've got several different images of Vanessa, and this is one of the finished versions of the photo that I've got. And I'm just kind of, again, showing you she had some hot spots on the chest, and she had hot spots on the, the right side of her forehead. Here's another one. This one is the raw version, and you can see the hot spots in there. So by hot spots, if you're not familiar with what a hot spot is, basically there's not a lot of, or there's very little, if any, information in the photo. Where here on the chest, there is a little bit of the texture of her skin on there, but you see on her forehead, there really isn't any. So I'm going to kind of show you again what I do to work through this. One thing that you can do is when you're going to do this, if you're not going to use the generative, is you can use the patch tool. I think it's J on the keyboard. And I'm turning off my curves layer and my warmth layer just so you can kind of see. This is the raw image here. So what I actually am going to do is I'm going to select that image, and I'm just going to do content aware fill. And what it actually does, Photoshop will actually take it and it opens up a preview monitor, but it highlights in green the area that it's going to sample. And so what you need to do is remove some of those sample areas. So of course I don't want it to content aware fill part of her eyebrow, so I'm going to deselect some of that. I also don't want to use areas, I don't want to select areas that have weird texture patterns. And always when I do a content aware fill, I try to, if possible, set it to a new layer. So as you can see, it did the content aware fill and it added it to a new layer. So of course, it does not look right at all. So I'm going to add a layer mask to it. And a layer mask, it fills it with white. And so you're going to take your brush and make sure that it's set to black, because black will reveal what's underneath while white hides what's underneath. So just kind of remember that. So basically I'm just kind of painting out the rough edge on that content aware fill layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and set the opacity down on it, and I think I set it down to 35. A quick little zoom out, zoom back in, but now you can see there's a little bit of texture in there, and this isn't going to be perfect. This is a way for me to make it more usable. So let's add those layers back in, the curves, my color. So you can see now it actually looks a little bit more usable. There's a little bit of texture in there. Is this perfect? By all means, no. Is it usable for Instagram, social media? Absolutely. And I would even bet when I finish this, I could print it. Printing is always a massive test for your work, but There's some hard ones in here, y'all. There's some hard ones in here. So as you saw, I went ahead and duplicated the layer because I want to make adjustments, and I'm actually going to go through and remove some blemishes and stuff like that. And I want to kind of keep a key version of the layer that I want to keep using. And so as I actually go through this process, once I make a couple more adjustments, I'm going to go ahead and keep that layer, get rid of the bottom, and then duplicate the new layer that I'm using. So here I am again using the Content Aware tool, and I'm looking to find good texture patterns on her skin. It automatically selects what is kind of similar, and so I don't want to use that because it's her forehead and there's no texture in her forehead. So what I need to do is I need to make it select what actually has some texture to it. So again, I'm going to deselect what I don't want. And as you can see on that preview window, it's just not that good. This isn't a good selection, but we're going to keep messing around with it. And we're going to see what we can do. So if I hit OK, we're going to see how that looks. It's kind of rough. Let's go ahead and set a layer mask to it and kind of blend it a little bit. So we do get a little bit of texture back, but it's ugly. So just because it's ugly doesn't mean you can't work with it. Remember, just play around with it a little bit. This is like trial and error, y'all. This is something that I've learned over time. Of course, I try not to get hot spots in my shot, but look, zoom out on your photo too. If you're going to pixel peep on every photo, you're going to notice it, but nobody else is going to see that. But if I zoom in, now I can see that there's texture up there in the bridge of her nose. The only spot that really doesn't have that texture is right there at the very top, and I think I'm okay with that. So again, I've got that set to 35% opacity, and now I'm working on a new section, her forehead. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these two layers because I like this layer that I'm now using. And I've got the selection on her forehead, so now I need, again, this is very repetitive. Look what it actually pulled. It pulled her hair. So using the tools in the upper left of that preview window, you've got the plus and the minus over there. And right now it's minus, so I'm painting out what I don't want selected. If I want to select more, I'm going to actually use the plus sign in the upper left of this preview window. So I don't need the hair selected, so I'm going to paint that out. But as you can see, this just does not look very good at all. Part of it looks okay, but the other part does not look okay. So I'm just painting out what I don't like. There we go. Ooh, I like that one. That actually worked. So it was using some of the skin and the pores from her cheek, and that definitely does not match that texture from the forehead. So I needed to get that out of there. I don't need this texture here from the nose. And you can see right there on the lower part of her forehead, I'm getting a texture back in that I kind of like. See there, now I'm using that plus. So now I'm going to paint in a selection, see if I can get a little bit more of the texture that I feel matches. So this again is where I'm saying this is like it's a trial and error. You're going to go back and forth and see what you like. It's not hard, but it's definitely not easy. And if you get any little mistakes or anything like that, you can always Control Z, or it's got that real hard edge over there, but I'm going to end up painting that hard edge out with the mask. So remember, it does not have to be perfect, y'all. It does not have to be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and lower the opacity on this one a little bit more. It doesn't add a whole lot, but let's see how it looks when we finish. So first, I know I've got to paint out that hard edge, paint out anything over the eyebrow, get that hard edge off of the hairline. So not much of a change at all. Not much of a change at all. So it's funny looking back at this after I did it several weeks ago to see, all right, what was my process? And of course, I don't actually have any audio for me to go by, so it's kind of me learning along with y'all as I go. But as you see, I was kind of referencing the very original image that I have with the newer version that I have. So I've got texture on her eyelid, got a little bit of texture on the forehead, but still really not that much at all. So let's see what we're going to do here. It's funny watching this the same time as you guys. So this, I'm using that patch tool, and instead of using content aware, the patch tool, I can actually use content aware also. And so when you select an area with that patch tool, you can click and drag to an area that you want to try. So that's, I was kind of looking for the texture in her cheek. I'm also trying to get a very similar shape if possible. I think I end up copying and pasting this one. Yep, copy and paste. So now it's going to be, I'm going to move it up over top. And we're going to see how this works. You're basically seeing me kind of working through this issue here as I go. And this just kind of my thought process of what I'm actually doing. So still, it's just too hot. Just too hot. I bet you I end up going with a generative fill on this one. That one's not bad. Not enough though. Yeah, see, I gave up. I'm going to maybe look for a different area that I can try. So here we got hot spots down on her cheek and her lip. I know for sure that there is no way that I was able to get this with a content aware. So more than likely, I'm going to use generative fill. So I can try content aware, see what it's going to look like after painting out all of this. And basically I did that just for y'all because I'm like, you know what, more than likely it's not going to work, but let me just show it. I gave a little bit back. Actually better than what I remember. It's funny looking at my the way that I edit from weeks ago. That's pretty cool. Look at that. That's actually pretty good with that content aware. Painting out, I just need to get a little bit of texture in there, y'all. That's all I'm looking for is some texture. There's a little bit more. I can get rid of these areas that aren't anything closely related. You know, off of her face, her eyes, her nostrils, her lips. I know that I'm not going to use that type of texture for that skin right there. So let's see. That doesn't look too bad. Remember, it's not going to look, after I lower that opacity on it, it's not going to look the same as what you're seeing now. No, I don't like that. Let's see what that does. Don't like that at all. Let's add some of that back in. See what that does. Nope. Nope, there's no texture there, Jason. A little bit of texture there. But it's pulling a lot from her forehead. That's why there's not a lot of texture in there. All right, how long am I going to keep working on this before I decide, all right, generative fill's the way to go? Nope, that doesn't look good. I remember actually now when I was working on it, I was like, man, I know I can get it, but I think I ended up quitting and be like, you know what, forget it. We're going to go with the generative fill. But really, what I'm doing here is probably something that you're going to do. You're going to try and you're going to try. If generative fill was unlimited use, I would have gone right to generative fill. But I was trying to work it the old school way of using content aware. But watch what this does with generative fill. It's fantastic. Takes just a few seconds. I'll probably speed it up. Look at that. We have texture back in her cheek. It's not a lot, but there's enough texture. It gives you 3 options. I like that one, and I like that one. I like the first one, though. I do like that second one. It's got that little line, and let me see if I actually, and I don't remember which one I chose, but it gives you 3 options. So I think I end up going with that first option. Yep, first option, there it is. And it comes with its own mask, so if I need to, I can always erase out what I don't need. But look at that. Give me just enough. It does change it a little bit. It changes the shape of her face a little bit, but I'm going to erase back what I know is still there underneath. But now I've got texture in that hotspot up there. Look at that. That's fantastic. Generative fill. Beautiful. Ah, love the texture in that skin. So now, now remembering, I'm going to use that for the forehead too. So there are spots that you can see that you're able to use content aware. Look at that. I do the bridge of the nose too. I kind of remember that now. There's stuff that you can use with the content aware, and it's gotten really good. When you know more than likely you can get it with content aware, don't use the generative fill because they're limiting that because you're using their AI. So if they're going to keep look at that, all that texture right back there to the skin, and we've got a bridge of the nose now too. Let's look at that option. Oh, that's even better. Look at that option. And that option's pretty good. I don't like that line on the forehead. Option 2 is it. It matches the texture on the eyelid very well. It matches the texture on the cheek. So I went with option number 2. More than likely, I'm going to erase out a little bit here of what I don't need. Yep, right off the top of the hairline. And probably that eyebrow, yep. But look at that. That's fantastic. And I don't remember if I did or not, but a lot of times when I use that generative fill for something like this, I might end up lowering the opacity just a little bit so I can pull in some of the information underneath just to kind of blend it a little bit easier. But look at that, you know, zooming out, that's fantastic. So now I'm going to merge that. I'm going to go back and look at that first image or the original, look at the second image. There we go. We got texture in the hotspot. Hopefully I show that original photo again. If not, you saw it already. You can always go back. And then I just clean up. Basically, I'm holding shift. I'm using the patch tool. Yep. You can use a spot healing brush if you want. I tend to lean more towards the patch tool. And I just go around, make the selections that I need to make. And this is for image cleanup. And then I use this content aware fill. Hit enter, and boom, gets rid of that stuff. There's that little bit of that line from that generative fill I don't really want, so use that. So you can use a little bucket, you know, to do the fill, or you can just click and drag it. And more often than not, I click and drag. It just depends on what I need to do it. And this is just a little bit more image cleanup. I think I saw something on my screen that I thought was bad. And we're going to go through and touch up the rest of this image, I guess. But I've got several more that I know I'll end up getting to. Showing some of the actions that I have: skin smoothing actions, eye sharpening actions, warmth. I'll probably do a skin smoothing action on here. I do have prior videos showing that. And then I just kind of smooth it out. So that's how it would actually look if I kept that mask on it white, but I keep it black. So it's hiding everything, and then I'm going to reveal what I want it to see using the eraser tool. And then I just go in and soften up her skin. Some parts it's going to look weird. So kind of where you get some of these darker spots or some of these brighter spots, you see what it does to the skin. It makes it a little bit odd color. Odd color, you just have to be a little bit careful sometimes. But again, I normally really go back and change the opacity on it to just soften it a little bit more. Like that. Right there. Just a real hard crease in the skin, and just the way that the action works. What is it? The frequency separation or whatever. It just kind of does some weird funky stuff. So where you know that you're going to have weird stuff, you just either don't do it or you blend it back in. So I don't just do it on the face, I do it on the skin. Skin is typically blotchy. I mean, it's just going to be blotchy sometimes. And definitely when you're shooting natural light, it's going to be more blotchy. So that's why I will go through and just touch up. I probably don't need to do it on the legs just because they're out of focus, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then I lower the opacity on that level there down to 60. Sometimes I go to 50. Sometimes I go to like 43. It really just depends on, does it look too smooth? Does it look too fake? I want it to look very close to natural as possible. Just a little bit smoothed out. So setting that at 60 kind of shows that. Going down to like 51. Gives you a little bit more of that texture back in her skin as opposed to having it smoothed out. And you got to also remember too, if they're really close to the screen, if it's a tighter shot, maybe you can do it a little bit less, but then again, you can also do it a little bit more. This one here, we're kind of pulled back, so I don't feel like I need to go that high with it at 60, but I don't actually remember what I finally set it to. It looked like I set it to 51. So now I'm probably going to merge these two layers. So I've got the edited layer on top and the original layer on the bottom. And you can see it doesn't look a whole lot different. All you can really see are the hot spots in the forehead. So that's the edit, that's the raw. Edit, raw, and then again you've got the smoother skin with the edited version. So let's see. Then when I just do my save, I think I actually show another one. I don't think I go through the whole process because it did take a while to do, and this video is already at like 25 minutes. But I can kind of show. I use the similar process. I've got texture back in, texture back in. I believe for this one I was actually able to use content aware as opposed to using the generative fill. And that's it, guys. That's all it is. I don't know if you learned anything. It's fun actually sitting there watching it again as I was doing it, not getting to hear me explain it because I actually was in a spot where I really couldn't voice out loud. So I was just going through the edit thinking I'll voice over it later. So please feel free to ask questions. But yes, so my main workflow is I pull everything into Adobe Bridge. I go from Adobe Bridge, I open everything in Camera Raw, I make my edits in Camera Raw, and then I pull my images that I'm going to edit into Photoshop, and I make my corrections in Photoshop. I do not use Lightroom. I know Lightroom has all these billions of amazing things. That's not part of my workflow. Right now, it's Bridge, Camera Raw, because Camera Raw's got so many things that Lightroom has. So just know, if you're not a fan of Lightroom, or if you like it but you're maybe looking to slide away, look into Camera Raw. It's very, very similar. I just don't know, because I don't use presets, I don't know that you can load presets into Camera Raw. My guess is you probably can, but I don't use them. And then I open, once I get all of my adjustments made in Camera Raw, and yes, you can batch apply your settings. You know, if I've got 10 photos set and lit one way and I'm in one scenario, and I make my adjustments to 1, I can grab all 10 and apply those same settings across the board, and every one of those is going to look the same. Very much like Camera Raw from what I've heard as far as batch processing goes. And I could apply that to 200 photos if I wanted to. As long as the settings were basically the same, the lighting was the same, I could do that. I mean, if the lighting's different, it's going to apply those settings still all across the board, but now I'm going to have to go in and tweak. So basically, that's my workflow. That's how I would deal with hotspots. If you have different or better ideas, please leave comments below because I want to learn what your process is. If you got any more Photoshop questions or questions on maybe how you would do this, if you ask me anything about Lightroom, my answer is going to be no, and that's going to be the shortest video ever. So don't ask me anything about Lightroom. But if you've got Photoshop questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, keep shooting. Bye.